Alright guys, TacticalRab again today. Hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. Scump has revealed who he believes is going to take down the championship at Major 4 in Columbus and reveals who his key competitors are going to be to watch out for to OpTic Texas this weekend. LA Thieves, Surge and potentially others could be in the conversation, but even FaZe are way further down the rankings than many people expect. Very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I would greatly appreciate it. Plenty to get into. First of all, the breakdown for the Challengers Champs prizing this year compared to last year. First place is 60 grand. Now, okay, 60 grand for first place for a Challengers event doesn't seem too bad, but it is the World Championship and everything is significantly lower than last year's. Last year, their total prize pool was 250k. This year, just 150k, which is, obviously, it's not great to look at, right? The fact that it's going downhill from one year to another never feels good from anyone's perspective. Okay, the numbers still might be quite high, and if you win this, you're still doing pretty well, but it's far from optimal compared to what they were achieving last season. Now, what I will say about this, and I know many people made this point immediately and for good reason, is that they've just spent, or they've spent already 60 grand, and they will shortly spend another 60 grand on the bounty matches, right? So there's 12 bounty matches going on. At Major 4, we had 6 of them. Major 5 qualifiers, we're going to have 6 of them, and they're spending 10 grand per series on the winner of that series. So that's $120,000 spent over those 12 matches over those few months, and yet they've reduced the prize pool for challenges by 100k. So there's a debate to be had there, right? Because like 120 grand on the bounty matches, what does that money actually buy the CDL, right? I know the intention is the season's coming to an end in terms of qualifiers. There's matches like Guerrillas versus Ravens that nobody cares about, so why not stick another 10 grand on it to make it more interesting and increase the viewership? Does it actually work? I don't know. They've done it for a couple of years. They must think the metrics work out, but I can't imagine that's a good spend of that 120 grand. There's way better things they could do with that money, I am sure, than do this. And maybe one of the things they could do is just bump up the Challengers Champs prize pool back to what it was before. So, don't know, there's been a bit of debate about that, and I think for good reason. Quick update for you guys as well, I thought was interesting. If you guys like the upper deck cards and the CDL trading cards and stuff that was signed, I know there was some discussions between some players, I think maybe Skies or somebody mentioned it, that even at the start of this season, they signed more cards again. So I think every year, they're going to do the signed versions of these cards that have been coming out for even a couple of years ago now over the past few months. So I think they're going to release them, potentially the Vanguard cards at the end of this year, start of the new year, which is a better turnaround than what they had before for sure. The teams, though, are flying out to Ohio for the event in Columbus. No fans, of course. I wonder who that'll affect as well, because a team like Boston with Kremp and Beans, I think, does almost kind of thrive in front of a crowd. But there's certain players that, with their first LAN environment being in front of no fans, might be beneficial. For example, Ghosty, like the pressure on him to turn up there as such an important piece of that OpTic team in front of the home OpTic crowd in Texas was incredible, and he did really well to cope with it effectively, because I think it would have been very challenging for many players in his shoes, and obviously he dealt with it very well. For some players, their first time under the light, shall we say, is not always so good. So if you're a Kremp and you've never been to a LAN event before, at least on a professional level, it might be beneficial to not have the additional crowd pressure, you could argue, and it's almost like you're playing online to a certain respect. Of course, Toronto won the previous event at Major 3. Scrap says, talks about how it's a dream come true. Did a bit of a player profile episode here from the COD League side, pretty cool stuff. But after that event, immediately the discussion was, don't get complacent, right? We want to make sure we come in firing going forwards. And okay, maybe there's a bit of complacency crept in for the Ultra guys. Maybe the other teams just straight up stepped up their game and looked at what they were doing. Or Hicksy just couldn't perform online as he did on LAN, especially in terms of what, he was able to get out of his teammates, let's say. Ultra, I still think they've got a potential to make a run in this tournament, but, it's difficult for them to go back-to-back at the very least at the moment. And honestly, most people aren't even putting Toronto close to the conversation for winning this event. Makes sense at the end of the day. They're starting in the losers bracket. Making that run is going to be incredibly challenging, and they're going to have to face so many good teams along the way that you wouldn't really expect them to win all of those series for sure. But it's kind of rare that the reigning champions from the previous event aren't even in the discussion, and Scump certainly doesn't have them in the discussion that we will see here in a second. Now, these are the power rankings that we put together at Breaking Point. Fantastic clickbait here in the screenshot, because, this is not entirely... Okay, part of this is accurate, but of course the SA tiers were a little bit playing with reality. The actual rankings look like this. OpTic, of course, in the S tier. Then the A tier is Thieves, FaZe, and Surge. And then you get down to a stacked B tier with Ultra in here. Now, Rokkr in the C tier, which is kind of remarkable to think about, but I guess it's justified. And then the 3 terrible teams. Now, it's expected, but still kind of interesting and remarkable in a way that for OpTic Texas, everyone everyone who voted in this put them first. Now, I'm not really surprised given the way they've played, but I mean, still, it's kind of interesting, right? That literally everyone who voted in this put them, the average placement they got given here was number 1. So it makes sense, but they're clearly the S tier team if there is a team to beat right now in OpTic. Then it's Thieves, number 2. They got an average rank of 2.4. Then FaZe an average rank of 3.7, quite far behind. And then Surge at 4.1. So most people seem to think that Thieves are as close to OpTic, really, as FaZe are to Thieves, which is quite interesting in terms of thinking that FaZe are... I mean, how many times have FaZe gone into a tournament as the 3rd favourite lately? Like, it's very rare to think about. Surge then a 4th, which I think is totally justified right now. Subliners, though, 5th. I am surprised that Subliners made their way up this high. Like, okay, they're still decent, right? They've still done okay. They did beat FaZe in the Game 5 during the qualifiers, and they did go 4-1, and they're good online, and they've got good points in the standings. But still, 5th, I think, is maybe a little bit generous for them. I might be tempted for now to have Ultra slightly above Subliners in terms of how good the teams are. Like, if Subliners were to play Toronto right now, I might favour Ultra. But then again, Subliners absolutely destroy everyone when it comes to these kind of like pro-am events in Columbus. They won it last year, right, with Crimsigs. So, you know, they could probably do it again, to be honest. Maybe a team to keep your eyes on as kind of an outside chance of making a run New York, if Priester can turn up as he did at the start of the season. Then Ultra, then Vegas, then Boston actually in 8th there. So yeah, having Legion 7th is quite an exciting prospect, I think. And it was pretty unanimous, actually, a 6.2 average placing here, only just behind Ultra. It was super close in the rankings between Vegas and Ultra. Like, Legion could have even been 6th here if just one vote went the different way. Breach in 8th, which is, you know, maybe justifiable right now. Then Rokkr in 9th, and then it comes quite clear the bottom 3. I don't really care the order here. I personally think Florida Mutineers might be the worst in the league, but, you know, most people put Guerrillas. So whatever, fair enough. And these are the overall power rankings that we came up with. So understandable, and these are the favourites in order. So the OpTic guys know that they're the favourites coming into this event, but they've given their thoughts on who the opposition might potentially be. JP gave his perspective on this as well, and really said that Thieves and Surge are the only teams that actually give them a good battle here, right? It makes sense, but he says in the hard points, in the scrims that they play, Thieves and Surge actually have a chance. The rest of the teams, it's looking slow. He also mentions Toronto and the run that they might make through losers, and then finally gets on to FaZe and says, actually, yeah, okay, fair enough. FaZe are still potentially good if they win a lot of search and destroys, which they probably will do, and if their respawn is better, you can never count FaZe out. But it's interesting that FaZe aren't really too much in the conversation at the moment. Okay, FaZe are always mentioned almost right now as an afterthought for winning this event, rather than being right there up in the favourites category. And I'll also share what Scump has to say, because he echoes a similar point and says, well, you know, Thieves, in terms of teamwork and coordination, they can give OpTic a good battle, I think. Yes, it wasn't particularly close, in fairness, when they played in the online matches, but potentially when they go again on LAN, it could be a very different story. Thieves usually place well at these type of events anyway, and on LAN they often get better. Surge, if accuracy plays as he presently is, always are going to be in the conversation because their respawn is just that good. It's right up there with the best in the league, even in the hardpoint win percentages. And then FaZe are kind of like, well, you know, maybe FaZe have a chance.
A little spoiler, I have OpTic winning the event. I think this one is OpTic's to take. I think if they lose this one, I'm going to be a little bit surprised. I'm not going to lie with their form. I think there's a couple teams that can maybe mess with them a little bit. But if they play how they've been playing, I have them winning the event. I think like Thieves with them. I think Seattle can probably mess with them a little bit. FaZe, if FaZe is playing like FaZe can play, could definitely mess with them on LAN. But like there's only a couple teams that I really even see having a chance to beat them. So I think OpTic's in a good spot for this one. There's no fans, which that's probably going to have an impact on some of the players. No fans, that's going to affect some people positively. It might affect some people negatively. Obviously that atmosphere is a lot different when there's not a couple thousand people screaming. So it's going to be an interesting weekend for sure.
Awesome. And I guess for you, before we get into the major, you know, who do you feel is kind of your biggest competition? Who do you like? We've heard about your scrims and how well, you know, there's like the Scrappy clip of like, he just feels like OpTic's on another level right now. But there's got to be someone who's playing you guys tough day in and day out.
Yeah, I would say LAT and Seattle are probably the two biggest contenders with us. Okay. I still think we should be able to win this whole thing, based on, you know, what we're showing, and it's just if we can bring it at the tournament for sure. You know, I think Toronto had a bad stage, but they could, it's LAN. They could do whatever. They just won the last LAN. So it's
100%.
They're up there too. It's not like they're, just washed out because they had a 1-4 online, stage. They're starting a loser bracket, but they can easily make a run. So, any of those teams like FaZe, even like they, if they can fix their hard point, that's a scary team now because, now you're scary at hard point and search, and that's really scary for contenders. So that Seattle Atlanta match 1, is going to be insane because, one of those teams is going to the loser bracket.
So these are some of the odds here just to kind of see what the bookies tend to think on this one. OpTic are the quite clear favorites. Then it's Thieves and FaZe kind of tied. So the bookies see it a little bit differently than Surge, Subliners, and then after that it goes way downhill. And actually Toronto have a better chance apparently than Legion, which I think is probably sensible. But Legion do start in winners. It's quite rare you see a team starting in losers have a better win percentage chance than the team in winners, and even Rokkr starting winners as well, and they have a very outside chance because they play Thieves round 1. And you will see a lot of representation from those top teams on these lists. Top 5 hardpoint KDs, it's actually Standy number 1 with a 1.29. Incredibly impressive performance, but then Cellium a 1.28. Shotzzy, Kenny, Octane rounding out the top 5. If you look at Search and Destroy, it's Huke with a 2.14. Drazah's 1.84, almost going a bit under the radar, right, given Huke's performance this stage. Then Pred, and then Standy and Temp. So incredible stuff. I mean, Predator 1.74. He had a ridiculous KD last stage in Search as well. It was actually insane. So he's done it again this time around. And in Control, Octane leads the lines with a 1.75. Then Beans, then Crimp as well in here. And then Cellium again at a 1.27. And Pred in here as well. So, I mean, yeah, Beans and Crimp is interesting from Boston's perspective, just because they, of course, beat OpTic in that Control they played in the series on aBeZy not long ago. So that is one to watch OpTic in the series they play. And look, at the end of the day, there's so much optimism around this OpTic team right now that I know that many OpTic fans are almost kind of fearful of what this means for the event, because it has been a thing in the past. OpTic Gaming's team will go in having dominated online, looking so good into the event, and they'll start out slow on the first day because, maybe there's a bit of complacency that creeps in. I think this team honestly might be past that. It might be a little bit different in their perspective, but it's only natural in a way. We've kind of seen it with Toronto. When you're doing so well, maybe you win something or maybe you don't, but you can drop the ball a little bit. And we saw earlier today, right, with Dashy sleeping through that scrim. I don't think that's indicative of a trend to come, but it's interesting timing nonetheless. This is the bracket the reverse sweep guys come up with, so if you guys can't quite see this, I'll just speak you through it. They have OpTic and Legion winning the first round. I know that there were some tiebreakers and some coin flips involved in getting to this one, but it makes a fair bit of sense. They've got Thieves and then Surge beating FaZe. Ultra will take down Breach, then the Subliners will beat Mutineers. They better do right for New York's case because they lost to them last time to come top 12. Then they've got Ultra advancing and eventually beating Surge, actually. So Surge would go out top 6 in their bracket. It's Rokkr going out top 12, losing to Ravens. I mean, man, if that happens, that would be absolutely tragic. And then it's FaZe making a loser's run to 3rd place, beating Ultra. So their bracket is Ultra 4th, FaZe 3rd, Thieves 2nd, OpTic 1st. But it's pretty unanimous from many people that OpTic versus Thieves is the most likely final here. And I do think that is justified. I don't know where FaZe are going to place. I expect them to still make Sunday somehow. I think that Surge or Ultra will be the other team there on the Sunday. Maybe Subliners if they can put something together. And let's be honest, right, an OpTic versus Thieves final here would absolutely bang in terms of viewership, right? It'd be incredible if these two teams did match up in the finals. I know that Ben J. Nassim also had an OpTic versus Thieves final. I believe he had OpTic winning it 4-3 in the best of 7. So, yeah, many similar predictions, but I think for good reason. Those two teams are right now the best two. So very much intrigued to your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.